Now that Lebanon may be part of this conflict and that Hezbollah has now entered this war, Alex, because we are hearing reports coming out of the IDF that sirens have sounded in northern Israel following projectiles being launched from Lebanon, almost certainly being fired by Hezbollah, one, of course, of Iran's major proxies in the region. I've also just listened to an air traffic control in Cyprus saying that there are a lot of missiles between Cyprus and Beirut. Speaking to a passenger aircraft over the Mediterranean just in the last few moments, that there are a lot of missiles between Cyprus and Beirut. I've just also seen a US Air Force C-17 heavy lift aircraft very suddenly turning around in the middle of the Mediterranean as it approached the south of Cyprus and immediately go back towards Western Europe, amid reports that Hezbollah has likely fired missiles and drones into northern Israel. We know that the siren has sounded in that area. It now seems that Hezbollah has forced Lebanon essentially to enter this war, and that Israel, as it has stood up some 100,000 reservists today, may need to redirect some of those resources to the north of the country. We did hear from the IDF earlier that they were bolstering their northern defences. In recent weeks, they have been striking Hezbollah targets in southern Lebanon. You'll remember in October the 7th in 2023, Hamas and other Iranian-backed forces were hoping that Hezbollah would join in that mass attack on Israel. Hezbollah did not at that stage join in the sudden assault on Israel, delayed its attack, and then has been degraded severely by the IDF in recent years, particularly after it lost Nasrallah, its leader, in a bunker-busting bombing in Beirut, and several other key leaders have been decapitated and eliminated, to use the language of the IDF. I'm getting more information now about the extent of these attacks into northern Israel by Hezbollah. Some reports that they are up to a dozen missiles being fired into the area. This would bring a whole new front into this war, Alex, and it comes, of course, amid these reports of an explosion at RAF Akrotiri on Cyprus. Now, that is British territory. It's a sovereign base area, both Akrotiri and Dikalia on the island. So at this stage, we don't know the causes of that explosion on the base. We do know that a security warning was issued to personnel at Akrotiri. There is a realistic possibility, Alex, that that explosion could have been launched, whatever caused it, from Lebanon. And that could have been a one-way attack drone, an unmanned aerial system, or indeed a missile fired towards Cyprus from Lebanon. It's unlikely that whatever has caused that explosion has fired from Iran due to the distance it would be required to reach the eastern Mediterranean island. It's likely that anything fired from that range could and would have been intercepted at the very latest by the Israeli air defense systems, which are designed to target according to risk. So if they feel as though a rocket is going to land in open area, they will deprioritize that rocket or UAV over those targeting residential areas. A missile heading towards a British RAF base, which houses not only British assets, but also American and Israeli assets, that would be a very high priority. So I think it's highly unlikely that anything that's caused this explosion has come from Iran. What is more likely, and is certainly a possibility at this stage, is that this explosion could have been caused by an asset fired from Lebanon. Interesting that explosion happening in the last hour, occurring at the same time as the IDF confirms that it has fired up its sirens in northern Israel following projectiles launched from Lebanon. As we approach 48 hours into this war, Alex, a new front has potentially opened up with southern Lebanon and Hezbollah entering this conflict.
So live, we're bringing you lots of breaking news this evening. We're hearing that the Israeli military are reporting projectiles are being launched from Lebanon. Now, that's the first such launch from Lebanese territory since the start of the American and Israeli strikes on Iran. Explosions have been heard in Beirut. Lebanese security sources say they are Israeli missiles, and Israeli military has just said that it has begun striking Hezbollah across Lebanon. Meanwhile, Lebanon's Hezbollah says that it has launched missiles, drones towards Israel in retaliation for the killing of Iran's leader, Khamenei. And just in the last few minutes, a Ministry of Defence spokesperson has confirmed our reporting after reports of a strike near Britain's airbase in Cyprus. There were no casualties there were no casualties, the Ministry of Defence has said tonight. Our armed forces are responding to a suspected drone strike at RAF Akrotiri in Cyprus at midnight local time. Our force protection in the region is at the highest level and the base has defended our people. This is a live situation and further information will be provided in due course. Let's have a think about, first of all then, fellas, this situation in Lebanon. Hezbollah, obviously funded by Iran, have been involved in events since October the 7th and so on, to 2.5 years now we are from that. What does it mean if Hezbollah are also attacking Israel, Simon, except for the fact that things just got worse for the Israeli people?
I mean, it's completely expected because that's their paymaster and their funder and their ideological ally for their whole history. So you would expect that Iran was calling in a favor, saying, "Hey, you guys owe us one. Do what you can do." Now, poor Lebanon, which has been essentially a failed state divided up into armed camps for a generation now, is in the thick of it.
Niall, your thoughts on this? I mean, there's quite a lot of British people who have contacts in Lebanon now. There are a lot of British people with family that live over there. There's a lot of Lebanese people living in the UK. How dangerous is it going to be, do you think, right there tonight?
Well, I think that clearly this is a multi-front war, and this is all anticipated, that Hezbollah would be drawn into this conflict. Same with the Houthis. I think they will also be joining the Iranian proxy terrorist movements, and so I do think the Trump administration has fully anticipated this. The Israelis, of course, have been actively fighting against Hamas and Hezbollah for many, many decades. The Israelis no doubt see this as an opportunity to wipe the floor with Hezbollah now that their masters in Tehran are literally being floored. And so this is a moment, I think, for Israel to destroy Hezbollah and destroy Hamas. And so this is an incredibly complicated, sophisticated, multi-front conflict, a wider war. We have an opportunity to win this now against multiple adversaries, and Iran is the nexus, the central force that keeps together these Islamist terrorist movements, and Israel sees the opportunity now to decisively, literally wipe the floor with these terrorist movements.
I wonder if I can bring in London as well while we're having this conversation, whether Paul Cox can contribute to this. Paul, my feeling when you're dealing with these sorts of people and these despotic regimes and these Islamic fundamentalists, it feels a bit like whack-a-mole. You take them out in Iran and they pop up in Lebanon, and you'll take them out in Lebanon and they'll pop up again in Syria or in Afghanistan and in Iraq. And how do we fix this? Is it completely unrealistic to think that Donald Trump can put much of a dent in what has been thousands of years of despotic mindset?
Well, I think we have to try and fix this. It's reached a sort of pinnacle point now. And just for our viewers, because I'm sure you're aware, and I know Niall will be, Iran funds a large number of groups, actually. Obviously Hezbollah, we've talked about Hamas, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, the Houthi movement, the Iraqi Shia militias. There are some Syrian groups as well. All of these groups are going to become very active over the next couple of days. I'm no expert, but that would be my expectation. And as a result, my gut feel is that Donald Trump and the US would be totally aware of this. This would not be a surprise to them whatsoever, and this is why he sees this going on for 4 weeks. It's inevitable now. Now that we've gone in and attacked Iran, and I say we because we are very much part of this, irrespective of what Keir Starmer says and thinks. I think he's become marginalised and irrelevant to some degree. But it will take 4 weeks to attack all of those different groups and get some sort of stability. And fortunately, we are on the side of the US and we are on the side of Israel. And it's going to be a tough few weeks, but inevitably with anything that needs doing of this nature, it's going to be hard. And you know, our thoughts and prayers are with absolutely everybody involved. I mean, let's not blame all the Lebanese in the same way as we don't blame all the Iranians. Hezbollah are a small percentage of that population, and there will be Lebanese civilians tonight and Lebanese family members in the UK that will be incredibly worried by what's gone on. And it's very likely that it was Lebanon, i.e. Hezbollah, that attacked Cyprus. Should all that come out, and we don't know all the detail right now, we do know there's been an explosion, that is likely to have come from Lebanon. That is not likely to have come from Iran. So the Middle East is kind of on fire at the moment, and we're going to be very much reliant on the US to put those fires out.
Let's have a quick look of the footage that we have of that strike in Beirut just moments ago. Here we go.
يا ساتر يا رب ايه هون هون.
Okay, that was it. That was very short, quite difficult to ascertain. Let's play that again just so we can see. I don't know whether this is the moments after the impact. I guess what we're looking at here is that dust cloud there is the moments after the impact. It's clearly a civilian area. It's clearly a residential street. There's somebody going past on a bicycle. There's a flashing light that it might be either a pharmacy or a bar or something there. Lights on in the basement and the ground floor as though it may be potentially a restaurant, something like that. I wonder, Simon, how the people in Beirut will have been living tonight. And what I mean by that is, would they have already been cowering in their homes, thinking that this might happen? Like, would they have already been on a war footing given the instability in the area?
You really think so? I mean, they had to know that something was likely to come out of Lebanon and to come back in. And of course, as Paul said, you know, it's not like all Lebanese are on the same team. You've got some who are rooting for the United States and the Israelis to take out the Iranian regime, and you have others who are in the pay of the Iranian regime. So yeah, I imagine Lebanese with any sense would have stayed home tonight and gone down to the basement.
Lebanon's Prime Minister has just said launching projectiles from southern Lebanon is irresponsible and a suspicious act jeopardising Lebanon's security. What does he mean by that, Niall? I can't quite work that out. Lebanon's Prime Minister has said launching projectiles from southern Lebanon is irresponsible and a suspicious act. Well, they're not talking about themselves. We just need to have a look at that. That might be.
Yes, I mean, I presume that's referring to Hezbollah attacking Israeli targets. Israel's now responding.
Got it.
And so, you know, of course, Hezbollah is the cause of Israeli retaliation here.
I see.
I presume that's what.
So it's the Prime Minister of Lebanon criticising Hezbollah.
Yes. I believe that is correct, and especially as Hezbollah is in a significantly weaker position now that their masses in Tehran are being taken out.
Well, are they? This is going to be the big question, isn't it? All of these terrorist organisations, which Paul just outlined there, everyone from Hezbollah to groups in Syria and Afghanistan and all across the world, frankly, and also in the UK. How compromised are they going to be if the money tap dries up from Iran? And I just can't see that it would, despite the Ayatollah being killed and many members of the senior leadership, if you like, the regime in Iran having been dispatched this weekend. They have so many trillions of dollars that money flow will surely still continue to all of these groups around the world. How do you turn that tap off?
Well, I'm not sure it'll continue at the same rate. I mean, if they lose their ability to export oil to the Chinese and to evade sanctions, then I think they will be squeezed because they've got, 90 million people, and the Iranian economy is not doing well. They've subsidized, their own economic mismanagement for 50 years. So I'm not saying the money would be cut off, but it would be much harder for them, I think, to fund in the same way Hezbollah and Hamas and all the others the way they have.
Because ultimately, that is what we in the West want, isn't it? As much as we don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon, and as much as we care about the Iranian people and how awful it is that they've been treated, particularly the women in that country, how they've been treated for decades now, what we in the West want is to undermine the terrorist organisations which threaten our lives every time we get on a tube or go to a Christmas market. That's where we want to choke off that threat.
Yeah, absolutely. And can you imagine if we had an Iran that was actually an ally of the West?
Yeah.
As it once was.
Or a Middle East that's an ally of the West, a peaceful regional settlement.
We have seen, strikingly, nearly all of the Gulf states uniting around the United States and supporting US military action, and of course they're being targeted by the Iranian regime. And so we do have right now, I would say, thanks to President Trump's leadership, much of that region actually supporting US military action. This is an extraordinary state of affairs, and this is down to the fact that the United States is boldly leading here. And President Trump wants to transform the future of the Middle East, actually. And this is a huge game changer. If the Iranian regime falls and it's replaced by a pro-Western government, a return to the pre-revolutionary era, for example. This is one of the biggest momentous changes in the world that we've seen in many decades, if this happens.
Yeah. We've also got another breaking line for you now. The Reuters news agency is reporting that explosions have been heard in parts of Tel Aviv and Israel, of course, but without the air raid siren warning. The source of the explosions is unclear. So that's extremely worrying. Of course, for people who live in Tel Aviv, they will hear the siren, they will get a notification on their phone that tells them they have to go underground, get in the bunker. What does it mean, Simon, if we are understanding that explosions have been heard, but we haven't had the air raid siren? What could that be?
Wow, that your head spins with speculation. I suppose it could always be sabotage, people there physically, but maybe more likely drones or things that were able to fly low and evade the systems, the warning systems, or maybe something so small that it wasn't picked up. There could be so many different reasons.
Yeah, we'll keep across that as we go along here this evening. Of course, I know there are a lot of people back home in the UK that have friends and family in Israel, and it's extremely worrying